Now, if you order a meal out and it's not quite right, do you just eat it or do you send it back to the kitchen? Now, you might think that most of the food waste that happens in fast food outlets happens at the end of the day, but new research shows it's actually happening when they get the order wrong. And knowing this could help reduce the staggering amount of food waste we produce every year here in Australia. With me in the studio is Associate Professor Liping Thong from RMIT, who's the lead researcher on this research. Hi there, Liping.
Hi, Prue. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming in. So what is happening when an order goes wrong at a fast food restaurant?
To put it very quickly, when an order goes wrong, it has to be returned. And then a lot of times it cannot go back into the system and it goes to waste. So even if it's perfectly edible.
Why is that happening?
In terms of the wrong orders or in terms?
Well, let's get to the wrong orders in a minute, but why is it that when it's perfectly edible, it isn't going back into the system?
It's a liability thing and a food safety thing as well. So on the shelf, you can't leave certain food on the shelf for too long because of food safety concerns and things like that. So there are very strict rules and protocols around this in terms of operations. So from our research back of house, once it's wrongly ordered or wrongly prepared, it has to be returned, and oftentimes it just has to be destroyed towards the end.
Okay, so if I send something back because it's not right, it's basically going in the bin.
Most of the times, yes, that is correct. Even if it's freshly made and rightly made, yeah.
So what is happening there? Because I know that you went into fast food outlets to research how this is all happening. Why are they getting orders wrong to the point where the food waste is so bad?
There's a few issues. Some of it, I think the food orders is being wrong is sometimes due to the rush as well, especially during peak hours. You get a lot of people, there's a lot of things happening that's behind the kitchen, the food prep, the buns and all of these things are flying around behind the scenes. But then there's also the customer rush as well. There might also be things like miscommunication between customers to the drive-thrus and all of that as well. So all of that compounds and causes all these problems with like wrong orders made or even like ingredients missed, for example. So human errors is unavoidable sometimes because there's just so many things going on during the peak hours.
How much waste are we talking?
So in terms of like quick service restaurants, so just to clear the definition a little bit, the research actually covers not just fast food outlets.
Okay.
We looked at quick service restaurants. Yep. And by definition, what we looked at is food businesses with limited table services and a very quick turnaround.
So this could include like a fish and chip shop or something?
Fish and chips depends. Like, so if it's minimal table service, yes, in most cases, fish and chips. So even like the health food as well, like juice bars, sushi, and all the takeaway ones, pizzas and stuff like that. So those usual suspects, including the ones in food courts. Many are actually part of the quick service restaurants definition, except cafes. So we don't include cafes in that definition.
So anywhere that you go to the counter, you order your meal and you probably just take it away.
You take it and you go. So like exactly like that. So takeaways as well as and fast food outlets are a huge proportion within quick service restaurants.
Okay, so what sort of level of waste are we talking about here?
So in terms of the level of waste, I think I'll just start off broadly at the Australia scale. So in terms of Australia, the food waste cost is $36.6 billion annually.
$36.6 billion.
Billion annually. And then if we boil it down to hospitality and food services, the stats is 1.2 million tons of food waste annually within that range. And if we drill it down even further, takeaway and QSRs, we contribute 40% of hospitality food waste. So it's quite significant, the sector within that category. And for context, that's 130,600 tons annually of food waste.
130,600 tons.
Tons, exactly.
Okay, so that's a lot of food just going into the bin because of mistakes, effectively.
It's mistakes. That's one of the hotspots that we actually uncovered, but there's also other hotspots as well. So there's the top three, mistakes being one of it. That's at the service ready stage, but there's also things like stock storage as well.
Yeah.
So the perishables, they don't last very long, or the infrastructure doesn't actually support the stock storage. Temperatures fluctuate, for example, food goes bad in storage, and there's also pre-preparation as well. So offcuts, for example, that's not being used, lettuce on the ground, and all of the issues. So all of it combined together, that collectively creates all this compounding food waste within the sector.
I've just got a text in from RJ in Druin who says, I couldn't have the nerve to send my order back. I appreciate the staff for effort. RJ, I will put it out there because I have told this story on the radio before, but my first job was at a fast food chicken restaurant. And I don't think I got very good training because I was working on the burger making, and I actually didn't at the time know that you needed to cook the bacon before you put it on a bacon and chicken burger. So, we only had a couple of them sent back, which is very confusing to me. I'm sure that I sent out quite a few more than 2 without cooked bacon. But does that sound really familiar to you, that you've got somebody who's working on a station, they're quite new, but their training might not be up to scratch?
Yeah, that is an excellent point, Prue. So because we discovered in the findings, what are the solutions that industry could actually come together to help? Number one is training.
Yeah.
So that's exactly right, because a lot of the new staff at the kitchen and all of that, they get their training on preventing and mitigating and reducing food waste at onboarding stage the first time. And then that's pretty much it for the most part, as we found out from the surveys. But what we find is that staff wants to do the right thing, but they just not equipped how, and they don't know how to proceed and all of that. The one thing that we would recommend in our report is that ongoing training and sustained training, because they are the key agents on the ground. They know exactly where the friction points are and all of that. So we need to empower them to help them turn that into tangible actions to prevent food waste on the ground.
My guest here is Associate Professor Li-Ping Thong from RMIT. Now, I know that you work in the digital design space. How on earth did you get involved in trying to manage food waste?
Yeah, so this is a bit of an odd one, because previous years I actually worked with Food Bank Australia through the Fight Food Waste CRC project with my colleagues at the School of Design as well. And through that one, we were actually doing something very similar. We are actually looking at developing an app, working with industry partner, working with Food Bank on actually how to actually move surplus food from all these outlets, and then using this app to actually direct those surplus foods for collection for free, for donation to people who actually need those surplus foods. So that was like a couple of years back. But then fast forward to today, there's this opportunity. I'm very passionate about the environment and about mitigating food waste because of such a big scale. I feel I could actually help contribute to that.
So what happens from here with the research?
So we're hoping that the sector action plan would actually start, it's the first step. This is the first time we actually have a really concrete data and really deep dive into the sector itself, because we ran 2 national surveys across quick service restaurants outlets, and this is for the first time. That in the Australian context, there isn't a lot of data around that, so we managed to do that and collect some really reasonable data. And then the sector action plan is meant to actually come up with all these solutions that is very practical and tangible, and then get a sense check on what the managers think, what operators think, and what the staff think, all kinds of people and stakeholders. And now what are we going to do next? Yeah. So there is now a concrete plan, right? So everyone could play a part, especially businesses. They know what the problems are, what the hotspots are. Now the next step is that we take this chapter, we take this sector action plan, and then start moving and planning towards the next feasible steps and put everyone together at the table.
Well, it sounds so practical, and I do hope that you succeed in this, because we do want to see less food waste. I mean, a lot of this stuff is grown here in our backyard. We don't want to see it in the bin. Jess in Portland, look, I've got a question for you. Do you think we are all a bit paranoid about food being past its best? Should we relax a little and be a bit more giving with our approach to leftovers or food that might not be at its hottest and freshest? FYI, Jess says, I love leftovers, probably sit in my fridge a little too long, but so far so good.
Yeah.
Do you think that sometimes we're a little bit finicky about it?
I think we are. I think for businesses, they have liabilities and all of that, so they have to be really careful, with government regulations and all of that. But in terms of household, there's actually some flexibility, and I think sometimes, yes, we are too paranoid. Best before dates doesn't mean that it's expired. So there's a lot of confusions. There's some research around that as well, so just they check that out. Because a lot of good food, they pass their best before date, but they're still very edible. Yeah. And there's a lot of confusions on that as well. So there's a lot of ways that we could mitigate food waste, as long as we have some knowledge and understanding on what's good and what's not good, as long as we don't get sick.
Yeah, of course, nobody wants that. Absolutely. Thank you, Li-Ping. So great to meet you. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Prue.
That was Li-Ping Thong, who just happens to live down the road from us here, which is nice to know. She's from RMIT, and she is actually the Associate Dean of Digital Design at RMIT. But in her capacity as a food waste warrior, she has led some research into food waste in quick service restaurants. Tell me, what do you do? Do you send it back, Or are you the sort of person who just shrugs and goes, look, I'll deal with it? Chris at Tabletop says, we have never sent a meal back and hate the thought of waste. If the meal is no good, then it's simple. We just don't go back again. Thank you, Chris, on 0467 842 722. Let's find out what's happening on the roads.